Hello everyone to a cloudy, cold, gray day. March 20th. Oh, cows. Cows can smell a specific odor up to 6 miles away. Which is really surprising because I've seen some cows not even able to find the silage running right underneath their noses. I guess it really depends on what the odor is and what kind of cow it is. That's a pretty cow though. Cute little wet nose. Hello, and today I am going to be turning these, which if you go to the dollar store, you will recognize as the dollar store plastic planters you see on sale. I'm going to turn them into this, which is a lovely little self-watering system. And they just stack on each other and pour it in the top, and it dribbles all the way down to the bottom. I got this idea from Life on Turkey Lane on YouTube. Easy and free watering system for Dollar Tree stackable planter and cucumber update. For Dollar Tree stackable planter. This is a really great instructional video. The one difference from Life on Turkey Lane and me is I'm going to use Powerade Zero bottles. And I believe she uses the smooth-sided bottles, which are a little easier to cut, but I like the sturdiness of these. I think they're going to last longer. Not to mention they're a little bit wider than the ones she has. My tools today are drill bit. It's a very small drill bit. I don't want a big one, and actually I think I'm going to trade that out for an even smaller one. A knife, a marker, pair of scissors, and a hole saw. I know these this may seem like an awfully frivolous purchase for a gardener. However, I've discovered I've been using a hole saw, a whole different sizes of hole saws for a while, and I could not figure out how to get the hole in here without it, no matter what I tried. So it just became the best idea. All right, number 1, drill holes in the lid. Don't need a whole lot, just enough to let the water go down through it. To make sure the holes are clear, you can also turn them around. Drill it the other way. There we go. 4 decently sized holes there. And we move on. Alright. Now, you need to cut the bottle. You need to make sure and cut the bottle so that upside down it will be low enough so you can stack them on top of one another without it wobbling around. and yet have it tall enough so that the dirt is not going to get into your water system. Now, I cut this one just a little bit too short. Just a little bit too short. This one seems to be... Stop from wobbling on the bottom. This one would seem to be just a hair too big because the top of this is hitting it. However, when the weight of the soil is on it, it's going to hold firmly. So I think that this is a good size. Where this is on the bottle, on the Powerade bottles, is right here at this last, at the very top of this last indentation. Cutting it at the inner ridge made it a little too small. Cutting it right here seems to be okay. Anywhere in between there seems to be pretty good. Now again, I do have my Dremel, but a lot of people don't have a Dremel. So I figured out a way, almost anybody can do it. Scissors. It's really hard to cut into this stuff. It is really difficult to cut into this stuff. What makes it easier is if you take a pen and you mark where you're going to cut. Marking the top of all these little ridges makes it a lot easier. By no means does it have to be stellarly perfect, unless you are completely obsessed with it being perfect. I use a common kitchen knife. Be very careful when you do this because a knife can slide around. As you can see, if you point it in toward the indentation and keep your fingers away from it, then you can start a cut. Put your scissors in there and then start cutting around the bottle. That very first cut is the most dangerous. There we go. And let's see if I did a good cut or if I have to clean it up. Let me just take this out. Fit this. This is going to fit in the hole. I'll put the cap on top of it. I like to use one underneath the bottom one to make it a little more stable, but it does look like it's pretty good. Let's see. Yep, fits pretty darn good. So that is a great place to cut it right there, and you can always adjust it with a pair of scissors if you need to. Just make sure it's high enough so that it either just barely touches the bottom of the one on top, or is just slightly lower but not low enough for you to pile the soil on top of it and get it into the water cup. All right, here is the difficult part. And there are several ways you can go about it. I have here a scrap piece of plywood, which I don't mind messing up. You can put this on this solid bottom so you have a solid platform underneath. Or you can turn this over and put this little piece right here, you can put this into that middle hole right there. This will call for two different techniques. If you're putting this in this little hole, you have this upside down, you're going to have to go slower because this is plastic and it tends to splinter instead of just cut. Even though these are meant to cut a numerous amount of surfaces, including wood and plastic. So let me show you both of them. Right in there. The biggest problem you're going to have is once this hits the plastic, this plastic is going to want to move. So you have to have some way to anchor it so it doesn't move. And the hole. There we go. And for goodness sake, keep your fingers away from here while it's moving. If I can see shards of the plastic starting to... There we go. Have some patience. It will cut through. I'm starting to feel it go in now. There we go. At this point, when you have a groove in here, you can start pushing down just a little bit. And just like that, you have your hole. If you're patient, you'll get a nice hole. There we go. Up, and this came out the bottom. Doesn't always come out the bottom. Sometimes it sticks right inside there. Turn off your drill. Make sure your drill is locked before you reach your finger in there. Okay? Turn off, make sure it's in neutral, and you cannot pull that trigger, because if you put your finger in here and you accidentally pull the trigger, you're going to lose your finger. Alright, let's try the other way now. Alright, so let's see if I can position this in myself so you can see. Again, get this point as close to the middle as you can. It's gonna help when you start watering. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but as close as you can make it. You can go faster with this side with a plank underneath. However, you have to be very careful that it doesn't move. When it starts to move, it can jerk very hard, and it can either hurt your hand or it can damage equipment. You can feel the screw bite into the wood. And you can see it wobbling. It helps if I have my leg up against part of the planter. You'll know it's done when you can move the planter up and down. See, that's a whole lot faster. And then just back the screw out and you're done. Yeah, you'll have a couple of screw holes in your scrap piece of wood, but it's a scrap piece of wood. That's what it's meant for. All right, back to drilling. All right, I like to take the labels off. I just don't like the labels hanging around, not decomposing, but deteriorating into the soil. Now we need some way for the water not just to go through these, but go through here, because we want it to leak out into the root zone. You can use either a bigger or a smaller one. If you use a smaller one, you can always go back later and use a bigger one. I have done both. I find very little difference between them. Now, this may or may not be easier when the bottle is whole. Powerade bottles are very, very sturdy. Even when they're cut like this, it's really hard to move them. But it may be easier for the bottle to be whole, standing up, which I don't have a whole one, but that's all right. But you need to have some holes around the bottom and around the top. You need to have some holes around the bottom, and you need to have some holes all the way up to about here so that the water can get out. You can put some holes up here if you want to. If it works for you, try it both ways. Oop. Might help if the drill went the right way. You can see what I mean about the Powerade bottles being very sturdy. That's what I noticed about the video in Life on Turkey Lane's video, is that the bottle is very flimsy and hard to punch holes in. There we go. Got a bunch of holes all around. That should be good for that one. All right, assembly. I've already shown you this once, but very simple. Push the bottle through, push the cap down. Now, as I showed you before, I like to put one down and then put this bottom one in it so that it doesn't wobble around. Without the bottom one, it tends to wobble, and I don't like that. Go. And the one we just finished. Through the hole. Attach the lid. And on top, like that. And just keep going until you have stacked as many as you feel comfortable stacking. All right, the water is going to run a little faster here than it would if the soil was in it. But this is just for demonstration purposes. You can see the water coming out of the holes down there, and it will run through. It'll fill up, especially when the soil is inside. It'll have far more of a wicking action than a running action. But excess water can always get out the bottom. A great cheap watering system for a great cheap planter.